शलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथामृतं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवम् श्रीराधा कृष्ण पदान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नम ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. Welcome to the Manah Shiksha. We are discussing text 3, Bhakti Vigyan Goswami Maharaj commentary. And yesterday, we are continuing the discussion of Maharaj commentary on how the holy name transforms the heart. Maharaj's story of Mataji who just joined the Harinam Kirtan, went to the temple, came out with the sari and bead bag. And how Rupa Goswami, the moment Rupa Goswami became Rupa Goswami, we understood the heart of Mahaprabhu. This is the Rath Yatra pastime. And Rupa Goswami is giving the science, explains the science of rasa in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Prabhupada gave it as the nectar of devotion summary study. So yesterday we took a detour to understand these concepts of rasa and bhava. So we went into the science of rasa based on again Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Prem Pradeep and Srila Prabhupada's nectar of devotion study. What is the difference between worldly rasa, heavenly rasa, and Vaikuntha rasa, and how many bhavas combine together to form rasa, and the prominent bhav is sthayi bhav. The other ingredients are called as vibhava, anubhava, sanchari bhav, and satviki bhav. We gave the example of halwa, and then how the sthayi bhav is there. We discussed vibhav, what are the uddipans within vibhav, and we went into the example of worldly rasa. We took this example of the kid attraction for biscuits. Then the mental rasa, which is there between the hero and heroine in this world. And then the spiritual rasa between the soul and the supreme soul. So this was just a detour for us to understand the concept of rasa. And then we continued with Maharaj discussion where he's explaining now what is material rasa, what is worldly rasa, what is rasa in writing and all. So we were discussing how the Srimad Bhagavatam is the dynamics of the love of the devotee and the Lord. The devotee has love for the Lord, and the Lord feels that love, and the devotee feels that the Lord loves him, and that's how the love keeps on expanding. And if you want to understand the Bhagavatam, you have to see through the lens of rasa based on Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So that's why we have to study Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So this is where we ended our discussion yesterday. And when you are experiencing spiritual rasa, when it is experienced, time is unnoticed. So that was the most important point, that time is unnoticed. Even in material sense, people who have love for things, they get so much absorbed in it that they are oblivious to time. Now, what to speak of the transcendental platform when you're experiencing spiritual rasa? So let us now continue with paragraph 58. You can love eternally because you are never bored with love. It is ever fresh and always burning in your heart. It is always reflected in a new way and always brings new surprises. So sometimes devotees might wonder, what will we do in the spiritual world if there are the same activities? No. Although it looks like the same activity, but it is ever expanding, ever increasing, and newer experiences you are having, newer and newer surprises. Ananda Ambudi Vardhanam, Pratipadam Purnamrita Asvadanam. We are chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, the same mantra last 15 years or 10 years. But there is a newer and newer understanding and realization and newer taste. Those who enter into these pastimes of Krishna and Vrindavan and due to their sadhana gain access to these pastimes, see new pastimes that no one else has described. So when you enter into actually the Leela of the Lord, you can see these pastimes. And these pastimes, what you see, they are not described. Now, Maharaj in the next paragraph gives Thakur describes pastimes that are not found anywhere else, nor in any other Purana. Because he is a Nitya Siddha from the eternal world, and based on his bhava, he's experiencing them in the heart. This is called as Leela Spurti. Leela Spurti. So that's why the acharyas, they in their deep absorption are actually witnessing the leelas in their heart and they're narrating it. And we might not find it in the Bhagavatam or other Puranas. So this is Leela Spurti, and we see that all the acharyas do this. There have been and there still are those who by entering these pastimes can see them. So Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami's many pastimes, we know how they were able to witness some of the pastimes in their Divya Darshan. It is called as Vaidyu Pratyaksha. In the transcendental vision, sometimes we hear about them. So this is what is rasa. Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami were in these pastimes or in this rasa. So remember that Rupa and Sanatana Goswami are originally in their spiritual bodies Manjaris. Rupa Goswami is Rupa Manjari. And they have witnessed these pastimes. And they have come here and they are narrating these pastimes. So imagine Rupa Goswami, who's from the spiritual world, who has witnessed all these pastimes. He took 17 years to compose the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And who was his assistant, who was editing his work? It was Jiva Goswami, another eternal associate. So Rupa Goswami took 17 years to write this Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. There is no scripture like the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu in this universe. So we should study these Goswami literatures, and especially Srila Prabhupada's Updeshamrita and Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu very carefully. Paragraph 60. If you have any questions, you can always raise your hand. There's another aspect to rasa that we should now understand. The characteristic of worldly rasa is that rasa or the aesthetic bliss is pleasing even when the emotion someone feels is so-called negative. This is worldly rasa, Maharaj is speaking. It is an amazing law of rasa. In tragedies like Hamlet, for example, the Western scholars tried to give some explanation to the emotions felt. Now, I don't know about the tragedies of Hamlet, what Maharaj is narrating, but there are some negative emotions there, and these emotions, uh, it was explained. They introduced the concept of catharsis. When a person is going through a tragedy, feels purification of the heart. So catharsis is a purging of the emotional tensions. So sometimes when we go through these negative emotions, it is, although they are so-called negative, but these emotions are in one sense purificatory. Sometimes devotees go through miseries, or material people also go through miseries, they go through negativity, but that is suffering and that is to purify them, and that can awaken transcendental inquiry. So that is how purification also it can lead to purification. In fact, this understanding of catharsis is drawn from the understanding of rasa or the aesthetic sense. So this worldly rasa is actually drawn from the spiritual rasa. Actually, it is this concept of catharsis is drawn from purging the emotions, emotional tensions. So the characteristic of rasa is that even if the emotion is negative, it will still makes it still makes us blissful. I feel grief together with the character of the play or the singer who sings about how his girlfriend left him, but that grief makes me feel bliss. Of course, in the worldly rasa, you might not really feel so, but especially in the spiritual rasa. Which are the classic examples where there is so-called lamentation and the feelings are there, but it is causing inner spiritual ecstasy. Anyone knows any examples of these? Any examples in the Shastra which we have heard? They are very well-known classic examples. Devendra Yadav Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, bro, Dandatna. Bro, Gopi's separation from Krishna when Krishna is
The
leaving.
gopis are in deep separation from Krishna and always in lamentation, spiritual lamentation, but internally they were experiencing the higher spiritual bliss. Another classic example,
Example, bro, again when Uddhav comes to Vrindavan.
There also the gopis are lamenting, but another classic example is Lord Ram. When Lord Ram was separated from Sita, when Ravan abducted Sita, Ram was mad and wailing out, crying, Sita, Sita. He was asking the birds, the trees. It was madness. Externally, it is, to show that how when you're attached to your wife, it's a source of misery. But internally, Lord Ram was, experiencing deep spiritual bliss in separation from Sita. And those 4 months when in the Chaturmas, he was in Kishkinda, waiting for the Chaturmas to get over so that, the Vanaras can go and search out Sita. So there he was deeply feeling the, feelings of separation from Sita. So this causes bliss. Actually, these cause bliss. Paragraph 60. Now the difference between material rasa and spiritual bhakti, or as rasa, Rupa Goswami describes bhakti as rasa, taught by Sarup Damodar Goswami, is that With the spiritual, we are not talking about a spectacle. We are not talking about a spectacle. We are not spectators of the relationship between Krishna and his devotees. We enter these relationships and we feel these emotions, and these emotions are called rasa because the object of my emotions is rasa itself. So, what the gopis are feeling separation from Krishna, when we read and we hear these pastimes, especially from realized souls, we are not just spectators, we are able to experience these emotions. And these emotions itself are rasa. Next paragraph. Taittiriya Upanishads defines God as raso vaisaha. He is rasa, or pure emotion. Rasam hi eva labdam anandi bhavati. When you attain rasa with the Lord, then you experience anand. Krishna is rasa, and rasa is impossible to be translated in any way or by any words. It is not just a taste or emotion or anything else. There is no equivalent to rasa, the Sanskrit word. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Srila Prabhupada used as mellows of devotional service. Rasa is rasa. Rasa is a special state that we must clearly understand. Krishna is a fountain of rasa. What is the name of Krishna in the form of rasa, which Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu defines as? Anyone knows? Or which are the names which denote Krishna as rasa? Anyone knows? Raise your hands.
Prabhu, it's Akhila Rasamrita Murti.
Yes, Akhila Rasamrita Murti. That's how the Mangalacharan invocation verse of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu starts. Krishna is Rasika Shekhar. Krishna is Rasraj. And Srila Prabhupada named the deities in Juhu as Radha Ras Bihari. So Krishna is Rasraj. He is Akhila Rasamrita Murti. He is the infinite source of all kinds of rasas and all kinds of relationships. He is constantly inviting us to love, and Krishna becomes the object of our love. That the love that we feel at some point turns into rasa. In its early stages, it is called bhava or simply a feeling. But when the relationship becomes real, when Krishna becomes the real object of love, it transforms into rasa. Now, this is all, you might feel that, how do we really fathom and understand? Again, I'll give you a mundane example. Just like bhavas can be emotion, bhava can be material ingredients, material nature, spiritual nature. Nasato vidyate bhavo, na bhavo vidyate. That which is material, it does not endure. That which is spiritual is ever existing. 2.16 in the Gita. So just like halwa, there is rava. Rava is, it's an ingredient. But only when all the ingredients come together, it transforms into halwa rasa. So in the early stages, it is bhava, but when stahi bhava, when it combines with all other bhavas, then it will transform into rasa. 64. Spiritual rasa is always beautiful and always blissful for one simple reason. Even in worldly relationships, when we experience love in the material world, that love is always fraught with either fear or other negative emotions, because the object of our love is material and the relationship can hurt. Yes. So there are two things, especially now worldly relationships. Maharaj is speaking of which rasa, according to Bhaktivinoda Thakur. We spoke about Parthiva rasa, Swargiya rasa, and Vaikuntha rasa. So here we need to a little define this worldly relationship when he's speaking about Parthiva Rasa, Swargiya Rasa, or Vaikuntha Rasa. Who will answer this? Lakshmi Narasimhan Prabhuji.
Swargiya Rasa, Prabhuji.
He is referring to Swargiya Rasa. That's why we discuss these concepts. So, we don't, the object of our love for biscuits or cakes is material, and, because it is not a sentient being, it cannot hurt us. So that's why sentient beings, relationships in this world, they are also material, but they can hurt us. And that's why sometimes, better not to have relationships and better. So that's worst. But you have to elevate yourself, because love for Krishna is spiritual, and that relationship, Krishna will never hurt us because our relationship is eternal. In the material world, love is always defiled. Srila Prabhupada said that the purest manifestation of love in the material world is a mother's love for her child. But in the material world, love is not always blissful because the child is not always blissful. When the child is suffering, the mother suffers even more than her child. So this is the difference. So Prabhupada said that the nearest, that highest, purest form of rasa is the relationship between mother and child, because it is completely selfless. But of course, the mother sometimes has, aspirations and intentions that later on my son, when he grows up, will take care of me. That is one aspect. And here Maharaj is pointing out that it's not always blissful, because when the child is suffering, the mother suffers, and she suffers more than the child. Okay, next paragraph. Therefore, material love always contains this duality between love and suffering. Love and suffering. But when we love Krishna, he feels happiness. Krishna is always happy. Satchidananda Krishna is. Even when he is crying and saying, "Why have you abandoned me?" he is happy all the time. Therefore, when we love him, our love is always blissful. Krishna is always rasa. Krishna himself is rasa. Just like the nature of rasa, the nature of the aesthetic sense is always bliss. It is always bliss. Krishna is raso vayasa. He is the pure sense of eternal bliss. And when we fall in love with him, our feeling is always blissful. Our love for Krishna can make a person truly happy, and this love is attainable thanks to Rupa Goswami, who introduced Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is the guidebook for us to enter into rasa. Okay, 65 paragraph. We must understand literally that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave us prema. He gave us prema. Maharaj explains how to understand this literally. For example, a piece of wood fell into the Ganges. It would end up sooner or later in the ocean, even if for some time it became stranded on the bank, thinking how nice it was when I was floating in the Ganges. But for the time being, I will take some rest on the bank. So, even if we are stranded somewhere, but we are floating in the ocean of Ganga. So we are floating in the ocean of Bhakti Ras, the Kirtans, the festivals, kathas, the yatras. These are all floating in the Ganges for us. So Krishna, Mahaprabhu, right from the beginning, when we join the Hare Krishna movement, he has given us what? He has given us prema. Sometimes people think, I had enough of devotion service. That's it for this lifetime. But Lord Chaitanya has already given prema to all of us. Like it or not, And sooner or later, the Ganges will burst the banks, and that piece of wood will be carried to the ocean. The Ganga, when it starts from Gomukh, there are two qualities of Ganga. One, it doesn't hold itself and it flows with a wave. Internally, there are no obstacles. Externally, also, whatever may come, huge rocks, huge woods, Ganga will just trash that and then find its way and flow towards the ocean. So internally, we should not hold anything for ourselves. We should not hold on to lust, anger, greed, or pride, illusions, duplicity. So internally, if we are pure, and externally, whatever obstacles might come in our devotion, we will be able to surpass them. So that's what Kunti Maran is praying. Tvai me ananya vishaya madhupate sakra ratim mudvate adhya angevegam udangvati. Tvai me ananya vishaya. Unto you, Kunti is addressed. Ananya vishaya. Let my mind just flow towards you, just like the honey flows without any break. Tvai me ananya vishaya mati pate sakrit. Hey Madhupate, let my mati, my consciousness flow towards you. Ratim means attraction. Udvata, let that attraction be towards only you. Just like the Gangas flows towards the ocean. So that's what, sometimes we feel enough because, Anartha Nivritti has not happened. But when Bhava manifests, it will burst from the Gomukh and just flow towards the Lord. The consciousness will flow towards the Lord. The piece of wood may shout again, enough, I want to get out of the shore again and dry out a little bit. And the Ganga will say, if you want to lie down a bit, you can. But then it will rise again and sooner or later carry that wood to the ocean. From the very beginning, by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we are given that prema. Sooner or later, we will get it in full if we do what Rupa Goswami has explained to us. So the seed of bhava is, impregnated in the heart in the form of Shraddha. And just like a male impregnates a female and impregnates the seed, in the womb, the child within few months will take birth. So in the womb of the heart, bhava will manifest if we follow the process. If we follow this path, we will eventually reach the ocean of this rasa. Krishna will then appear right before us, and that at that moment, our emotion, our bhava will develop into rasa and will become prema, because rasa is synonym of prema. So sadhana bhakti will become bhava bhakti, and at bhava bhakti, the sthayi bhav is revealed, and sthayi bhav with all the samagri will develop into affection for Krishna, which is prema. The combination of these rasas turns into a feeling, and this emotion, now the spiritual emotions begin. So Rupa Goswami in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu explains that the soul, it is called as a hardha. Hardha means the heart sometimes. There is the spiritual aspect of it, the emotional aspect of it, the spiritual emotions of the soul. So the spiritual emotions of the soul manifest at the stage of bhava. They manifest. So right now, our emotions, flow from the mind because of the impressions which are there in this form of samskars and attraction. Our chitta sometimes goes towards matter and material enjoyment. But when the Chaito Darpana Marjanam happens and the chitta is completely purified, then naturally the pure consciousness will flow towards Krishna, and we will start experiencing the emotions of the soul. Emotions of the soul. Paragraph 69. It was Rupa Goswami who explained us how to cultivate emotions. Rupa Goswami, I heard once one devotee saying in a class that, bhava is bhava. You cannot explain bhava. It's just bhava. But Rupa Goswami is not saying that. Rupa Goswami is giving a very, very philosophical definition of what is bhava bhakti, and is explaining the symptoms of bhava bhakti very exhaustively. One entire chapter is devoted to bhava bhakti. And what is bhava and what is not bhava. Everything is given very, very detailed analysis. What is prema bhakti? So every emotion, Rupa Goswami is giving a philosophical definition. So it's not something sentimental. So Rupa Goswami has explained this and we should study it. Sadhana bhakti means that we imitate those who have love. They do everything that we do, and we do everything that they do. So initially, we follow our seniors because we are inspired by them, and we just follow their example. But we do everything that they do in order to become like them, so that ultimately love awakens in our heart. Love awakens. Rupa Goswami has given us this roadmap to the realm of spiritual emotions, which will turn into spiritual rasa, into spiritual love, turn into spiritual love. So Rupa Goswami has explained in Upadeshamrita the summary of the science of Krishna. And the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, it is a complete science. Prabhupada also, if you see, Prabhupada says that Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is a complete science on devotional service. That's how the title is. And his two works, Vidag Madhav and Lalita Madhava, they are what? They are demonstrations of that science. How, there are rasa exchanges happening between Krishna and his pure devotees. So Upadeshamrit is summary science of rasa, and Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is the complete science of devotional service or rasa. And rasa in action is the two dramas, Vidag Madhav and Lalita Madhav. So for us, Upadeshamrit and Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is very, very important. I would like to know these three books which are mentioned. What are they? Upadeshamrit, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and Vidag Madhav and Lalita Madhav. Anyone? I would like to know whether you heard or no. What is Upadeshamrit, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and Vidag Madhav and Lalita Madhav? Anyone? Yes, Virendra Yadav Prabhuji. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhu, Updesamrit, it is a summary of Rasa, whereas Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, it is complete description of description of Rasa, and the practical you can see in Vidag Madhav.
Yes. So here I'm just showing you all that matter of devotion proper saying the complete science of Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is itself rasa only. And it's a summary study because Prabhupada did not write a commentary. He gave it in summary. And Upadeshamrit is this summary, it is just a summary of the science, but the complete science is Upadeshamrit. And rasa in action, demonstration, exchanges of loving rasas happening is these two dramas. First, we should completely become thorough with Updeshamrita and Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So these two books are the roadmaps for us. We should study them. Every year we should study them once. And over a period of few years, we will see that we will be, experiencing a little bit of rasa. Rupa Goswami made use of worldly rasa theory, the theory of aesthetic bliss and aesthetic pleasure that a person experiences contemplating some display of emotions. This is the Natya Shastra of Bharat Muni, as I mentioned yesterday. He made use of this structure to explain the mystical experience of bhakti. He used this structure and he explained that in the form of components of rasa, vibhav, anubhav, sthayi bhav, sanchari bhav, vyabhichari bhav. He used the same experience. There is in a drama, there is the actor who is acting, and then there is a background scene, and then there is the dialogues which are happening. So somebody who's an actor who is known to be a comedian, right? So moment he comes into the stage, the audience, he has not made any joke and comedy, but still they start laughing because now they know that he's going to this person is going to entertain us. So there is the actor, and then there is a background music or background picture, sound, and then there is the actions of the actor in relation. And those actions which the actor does creates a comedy scene and the audience going to laugh, hasya ras. So they're experiencing hasya rasa. So this structure, what was there in the Natya Shastras, Rupa Goswami experienced, means use this in the form of these components of rasa in the spiritual realm. He did not give a new definition of bhakti. Bhakti is bhakti, and bhakti always has a nature of rasa. Krishna is Krishna, and Krishna is always rasa. The Taittiriya Upanishads has declared since time immemorial, raso vaisya. Krishna is pure rasa, pure bliss. Rupa Goswami made use of this structure to explain to us in what way we can approach the pure original rasa, the Adi rasa, that is Krishna, as quickly as possible. Which is the perverted form of this highest manifestation of Adi rasa, perverted form in this material world. This is the highest rasa, Adi rasa. Krishna, and what is the highest rasa in the spiritual world? There is Dasi, Satya, Vatsalya, Mother. What is the most perverted form of this Adi rasa in the material world? I would like to hear others also. Nadia Chaitanya Prabhuji. No response. Vasant Prabhuji. Yes, Virendra Yadav Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, who is blessed?
Okay. Yes, Prabhuji.
Who it is blessed. Is blessed.
It is less attraction to the opposite sex. Yes, that's Adi rasa, the sex life. So if we, have to transcend that, then we should, understand the science of rasa. And of course, the leelas, pastimes will come later on with the purification of the heart. We should hear them. So we should understand Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Rupa Goswami developed this structure so that we could attain this experience in the right way. There are people who, inspired by Lord Chaitanya's example of extraordinary ecstatic love for Krishna, try to imitate him. These are the Sahajiyas. Of course, that is one way to try to experience it, by throwing yourself into some kind of artificial emotional state just go and start rolling on the floor or rub your eyes with an onion. But this would be damba, manifestation of deception or pride, as discussed earlier in reference to the first verse of Krishna. This is cheating. This is damba, artificially trying to imitate. We need a genuine experience, and Rupa Goswami has given us the structure through which we can attain true experience. So if you study Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, especially the Eastern Division first part, repeatedly, but more important, after studying that in your Bhakti Shastri or in your regular study, we should study the components of rasa. That is the southern division. And only when you understand the components of rasa, then Rupa Goswami speaks about the 5 rasas in the western divisions, Shanta, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. And in the northern division, he speaks about the secondary rasas. So without the knowledge of the components of rasa, you cannot, enter into the rasa. So we should study at some point the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu southern division. And very soon we are going to start this course. Soon after Lord Chaitanya's departure, the Tantrics who dressed in Vaishnava attire, the Sahaja sects who were trying to transfer their Tantric experience into the sphere of love of God. We have seen how easy it is to stumble in this very delicate, subtle sphere of spiritual experience and misinterpret our emotions. An example of this is the direct associates of Lord Chaitanya. In Odisha, now Odisha, when Lord Chaitanya resided in Puri, there were several devotees who were close to him. They are still the object of worship in Odisha, the so-called Panchasakis, or the 5 closest friends. If you go to Odisha, the cult of these Panchasakis is very prominent in Jagannath Puri. From our point of view, these 5 people were Sahajas of the lower sort. We do not hold them in high regard, although these people saw Lord Chaitanya and touched him. They saw the tears streaming from his eyes. They did not understand. They deviated, and their experience turned into cheap imitation that we as Orthodox Vaishnavas see as a pitiful imitation. See, one thing is there. What do you imitate? You imitate something which is very rare. Gold. Gold is very costly. It's not easily available. So there is artificial gold. Diamond. Diamond is also very rare. So there is artificial diamond, imitation diamond. Similarly, pure love. There is always imitation. That which is rare and very, very, very precious. There is always imitation. So the easy way is to imitate, but the best way is to go through the process of purification through sadhana bhakti. The difference between them and us consists of only one thing, that we follow the footstep of Rupa Goswami. We follow the Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, go through the sadhana, Raghunatha sadhana bhakti, follow the rules and regulations. Rupa Goswami described the yoga of emotions as a science. What is very important for us to understand is that although we strive for the manifestation of absolute, spontaneous, unrestrained love, in order to attain it, we must submit to a strict discipline. The 4 regulative principles, chanting, minimum rounds, Mangalarti, all that, if you want the spontaneous love. We follow the path of yoga based on discipline and on a most profound rational philosophy, the philosophy describing the mystic experience in the categories of reason. So we follow the yoga philosophy of love, and there is vidhi, the mystic experiences. There is, these are the categories. You have to go through the categories to reach to the substance. Next paragraph. This is the watershed that runs between the so-called mainstream of our movement of Lord Chaitanya and the various sects, which are still appearing nowadays. And between the 17th and the 18th century, when there was no pure Acharya in our line, There were so many Apasampradayas. Dr. Thakur lists 13 Apasampradayas, and they're completely, Vaishnavas were completely, seen in a very bad way. It was completely distorted. Bhaktivinoda Thakur had to revive, defeating all these Apasampradayas, revive the pure teachings of Mahaprabhu. So that is the difference between us and these various sects. Do not think that ISKCON will be an exception to the rule that many other religious movements have been spawning sects, but we will remain absolutely united and non-sectarian. Sects are appearing as they have always done, along with charismatic leaders, prophets, and avatars, even in ISKCON. Maharaj is saying, even in ISKCON. And we have seen that, when they appear and there are deviations, and then we see the results. We have seen the results in the last few years also. Rupa Goswami has come to prevent us from making this mistake, so that it is imperative that we follow in his footsteps. When Raghunath Das Goswami says, Swarupam Shri Rupam Sahaganam Iha Tasya Agrajamati, Sahaganam means all associates or followers of Sarup and Rup. We must remember not only Rupa Goswami, but also any follower of Lord Chaitanya who strictly followed in his footsteps. So it also means that we should follow our present Acharyas in ISKCON, our founder Acharya, and all the Acharyas who are coming in the Guru Shishya Parampara. Sadanam. Sadanam means that. I hope the discussion is clear. Any questions, any clarifications up till now? Anyone has? BVG has a question. We'll take this one question and try to finish this discussion. So, yes, BVG.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu Dandavat. Prabhu, we are following in footsteps of Sri Prabhupada. I mean, through Sri Prabhupada, we are following. So, we can say, no, Prabhu, we are following all the acharyas in the parampara.
Yes. Yeah, following Srila Prabhupada is following all the previous acharyas and the 6 Goswamis. Prabhupada, if you see, what is the first statement he makes in the preface of Nectar of Instructions? The Krishna conscious movement is conducted under the supervision of Srila Rupa Goswami. Actually, if you see, the Krishna conscious movement is conducted under the supervision of Srila Prabhupada. But Prabhupada says that is Rupa Goswami. What is the Mangala Charan of Bhaktivinoda Thakur? Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Satchidananda Namini. Gaur Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Satchidananda Namini. Gaur Swarupaya. I'm not able to recollect the third line. Rupanuga Varayate. He's the best of the followers of the Rupa Goswami. So Srila Prabhupada is the best of the followers of Rupa Goswami. And we follow Prabhupada, we are following Rupa Goswami. Okay, so now let's come to the next paragraph. Saganam Ihatasya Agrajam P is about all the devotees who are in one way or another connected with Lord Chaitanya, starting with Sarup Damodar, Sri Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, and their associates. Raghunath Das Goswami emphasizes that remembering them is the condition for attaining love, and there is no other way to obtain love except through them by remembering them. Smara Sputam Premna. Smara means remember, Sputam means clearly, with love. If you want to attain that highest love what Mahaprabhu has come, remember the Goswamis with love. Next paragraph. In the history of our Sampradaya, there was an important event held in Kheturi, which was the first Gaur Purnima celebration, personally organized by Janma Mataji, Lord Nityanand's wife. Narottam Das, Shamanand Prabhu, and Srinivas Acharya, who had come from Vrindavan to Bengal with the books written by the six Goswamis in Vrindavan, also attended. The purpose of this festival was, above all, to establish the doctrine developed by Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami in Vrindavan, and to bring it to Bengal, which at that time was flooded with huge number of Vaishnavas who followed various practices in various forms. So the philosophy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was given by the six Goswamis in their writings. And if you see, the six Goswamis wrote Siddhanta and philosophy in Sanskrit, and their works are all based on Krishna. Whereas those who were followers in the Bengal, the Mahaprabhu associates and the later associates, all their works are in Bengali and they are mostly pastimes. And you see that there were also little subtle deviations in Vrindavan, but the most deviations happened in Bengal and Orissa, because they were in Bengali, the compositions, and they were only pastimes. And the philosophy was given by the Goswamis here. So in Kheturi, this philosophy given by the Goswamis, the three, great acharyas, Shamanand, Srinivas Acharya, and Narottam Das Thakur came to establish. And Chaitanya Charitamrita, although it is Bengali, but it brings, it unites the Vrindavan Goswamis and the Bengal Goswamis. Because Chaitanya Charitamrita is Bengali and it is philosophy with pastimes. That is the uniqueness of Chaitanya Charitamrita. The event took place approximately 40 or 50 years after Lord Chaitanya's departure. By the time those who knew him personally had started to leave the world, this world. As it happens, those who were inspired by his personality had become confused and began to speculate. Just imagine, just when Mahaprabhu left after 50 years, this was happening. It is said that whenever an Acharya leaves, the teachings slowly get watered down, and by 50 years, the teachings need to be again revived. And it's almost now, Prabhupada left 50 years now. So slowly, the more we foundationally establish Prabhupada teachings by studying them systematically, then, there can be speculations and deviations. The movement, as a result, began to disintegrate into small sects because there was no single strict doctrine. The Goswamis of Vrindavan created this doctrine, but it also had to be established. So it's the Goswamis who established the philosophy. This act of establishment took place in Kheturi. Actually, in Kheturi, it took place. The exact date of the festival is unknown, but what is known without doubt is that during the festival, Lord Chaitanya personally returned and danced with Lord Chaitanya. During the Kirtan, the devotees suddenly saw that Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda were dancing with them. In this way, they sanctified the festival and approved of everything that took place there. During this celebration, Narottam Das Thakur was the chief Kirtanier. The wife of Lord Nityananda herself presided over it. Srinivas Acharya, along with his disciples, helped coordinate the event. Narottam Das Thakur's stepbrother, who was the king of Kheturi, personally built accommodation for all the visiting Vaishnavas who came from all over Bengal, and he also assisted with the organization. Janma Mata was the Acharya and is credited with the fact that she united the movement of Lord Chaitanya, which had started to fall apart, channeling it again into a single direction. So Janma Mataji was accepted as Acharya at that time. She had previously gone to Vrindavan, where she studied from Jiva Goswami personally the full conclusions of the Gaudiya Vaishnava doctrine. Now, Rupa Goswami is our Abhidheya Acharya. Sanatana Goswami is our Sambandha Acharya. And who is our Prayojan Acharya? Anyone knows? Raise your hands. Who is our Prayojan Acharya? Yes, Virendra Agapuji.
Prabhu Raghunath Das Goswami.
Raghunath. It is Raghunath Das Goswami. But who is the Siddhanta Acharya of our Sampradaya? Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Who is the Siddhanta Acharya? Lakshmi Narasimhan Prabhuji.
In terms of lots of philosophy, I think Jiva Goswami Prabhuji, because of Shat Sandarbhas, because
Not
that
in terms of philosophy or whatever it is Jiva Goswami who itself is our Siddhanta Acharya. Our Siddhanta Acharya is Jiva Goswami.
Yes, Prabhuji.
So imagine Janma Mata, who is an eternal associate, a consort of Lord Nityananda. She went and studied from Jiva Goswami the conclusions of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Siddhanta and established that in Keturi. So how important it is for us to study our Siddhanta. And Srila Prabhupada's Bhaktivedanta purports, the Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, or whatever it is, are based on Jiva Goswami Siddhanta. If you see most of the Bhagavatam commentaries, purports of Prabhupada, he is quoting Jiva Goswami, Vishwanath Chakravarti. Thanks to Janma Mata's extraordinary energy and influence, she had thousands and thousands of devotees. She gathered all the Vaishnavas in Keturi. Thousands of people came and danced and sang, officially following in the footsteps of Lord Goswami. As a result of Keturi festival, it was recognized that the immediate associates of Lord Chaitanya directly received his mercy, which they then transmitted. In the wake of the festival at Keturi, Narottam Das Thakur wrote the famous song, Gaurangera Sangi Gane Nitya Siddha Kori Mane Savarna Shri Gaura Mahima. He says that one must consider all of Lord Chaitanya's associates to be Nitya Siddhas, and through these Nitya Siddhas, we are given the opportunity to return to the spiritual world. It was then that the tradition of remembering the names of the Vaishnavas originated. So Maharaj is giving the brief history of the Keturi festival to explain what Raghunath Das Goswami is indicating in the third line. Swarupam Shri Rupam Sagana Tasya Agrajam. So this tradition of remembering the names of the Vaishnavas happened in Keturi. In another of his songs, Narottam Das Thakur mentions several times that it is the dust of the Vaishnava's feet in which he bathes. He writes, chanting the names of Vaishnavas is the source of my happiness. He writes that when he hears the names of Vaishnavas, he is overwhelmed with ecstasy. The Vaishnavas' names in our tradition is called as Prata Smaraniyam, that which must be remembered in the morning. Please mark this and do this as a sadhana. What is chanting called in Sanskrit? Anyone knows? What is chanting called in Sanskrit? What is the chanting mala called in Sanskrit? Anyone? Yes, Lakshmi Narasimha Prabhuji.
Is it Japa Prabhuji?
Japa mala, yes, but it is called as Smaraniya mala. Because through that we remember, by chanting we remember. It's called as Smaraniya mala. So here Maharaj is pointing out Smaran, to remember the names of the Vaishnavas in the morning. So if we do that, then we will get their mercy. In other words, when we rise early in the morning, we must remember the names of the devotees of the Lord. We must remember Swarupam, Shri Rupam, Saganam, Iha Tasya Agrajam, We must remember Raghunath Das Goswami, Loknath Das, Narottam, Shamanand, Srinivas Acharya. We must remember all of them. Imagine having woken up early in the morning and the first thing we think of is not the terrible dreams we were having, not the stomachache, not anything else, but Vaishnav Naam, Swarupa, Shri Rupa. When we wake up each morning, we say Swarupam, Shri Rupam, Sagana, Iha Tasyagrajam Api. So we should remember our spiritual masters, Srila Prabhupada, when we get up. Raghunath Das Goswami says here that remembering the names of Vaishnavas is the condition for attaining love of Lord. When we remember the devotees, attachment to Krishna appears in us by itself because Vaishnavas are eternally linked with God. Everyone knows, or if you don't know, you should know, Krishna also chants in his beads. Where does Krishna do this activity? One. And what does he chant? Who knows? Raise your hands. Anyone? No one knows. Where does Krishna chant on his beads? And which is the mantra Krishna chants? So Krishna chants at the place called as Ter Kadam, where he is now coming back to Nandagram with all his millions of cows. And he takes the mala, and each of the cows have different groups. Different cows have their groups. And he chants the names, Hey Dhavali, Hey Dhenu. No, he chants their names, and all those particular groups of cows, they all start running and rushing and come near Krishna. And from there, Krishna with all the cows, he goes to Nandagram. So Krishna is attached to chanting his devotees' names. If we are attached to chanting his devotees, remembering his devotees, then we will get that same love. This is the secret. So now Maharaj is going to return to Rasa again back. So this we will continue our discussion in the next class. And we will complete this discussion on Rasa and then begin with verse 4. Verse 4 onwards is very interesting. Now, how to attain that love, spontaneous love? What is the main obstacle was spoken? That is pride. And now the gross obstacles will be spoken in text 4, verse 4, and then subtler obstacles till text 7. So that we will start in the next week. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Any questions, any clarifications anyone has? Okay, so we'll end up here. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Shri Raghunath Das Goswami ki Jai. Shri Manah ki Jai. Hare Krishna.